Welcome to video lesson number 16. Today we are going to be adding and subtracting integers. For this lesson, as always, you will need the TOC paper you were given in class, number 16. If you don't have it, you can print it off. A pencil or pen to take notes. Make sure your notes are legible. You will need a highlighter marker or colored pencils. We're going to be talking about using counters later. So you may want two different colors to represent the different types. And this is part of the non-calculator section, meaning you can't use them. So don't practice with them. That's cheating. All right, let's get started. At the top of your notes, we just have some quick vocabulary. Remember, integers that we learned at the beginning of the year are positive and negative whole numbers. That means no decimals or fractions. Now, it can be a fraction if when you divide, it becomes a whole number, but you won't have anything where there's a decimal, or when you divide the fractions, you get repeating things. It's just whole numbers. The other part that you need to know is new. It's called a zero pair, and that is when you combine an equal number of positive and negative pieces or numbers, and those cancel each other out, meaning that when they cancel each other out, that equals 0. This is kind of like digging a hole. So if you dig a hole that's 5 feet deep, and then you come back and you fill it back in with 5 feet of dirt, you're back where you started. So that digging the hole is like -5, and filling it back up is a +5. So if you have -5 and a +5, if you put them together, you equal 0 because you're back where you started. So that's what a zero pair is. So the first thing we have to talk about is death to subtraction. Dun, dun, cue the sad music. Okay, so you might have heard this a little bit when we talked about integers at the beginning, but there really is nothing. Subtraction is not really a thing. It doesn't really exist. I know we teach you subtraction because in elementary school, your brain is not ready for negative numbers. But really, subtraction is adding a negative number. So I want you to understand this, that subtraction is the same as adding the opposite. And when I say opposite, I mean positive or negative. So if you're starting with a positive number, the opposite becomes the same number but negative. And if you're starting with a negative number, that same number becomes positive. So remember, opposites are positive or negative. So let's practice converting subtraction to adding the opposite. So at the bottom, I have 4 different problems here. 7 minus 3, -7 minus 3, 7 minus a -3, and -7 minus a -3. Notice that when we're putting, when we have subtraction and then a negative, or even if we had addition and then a negative, that there's parentheses around that -3 because it's showing that you have a negative number that you're not subtracting, because that gets kind of confusing. So sometimes when your second number is negative, they'll put it in parentheses like that. You're not doing anything special. It's just a way to set apart that -3. Okay, so remember, there is no such thing as subtraction. Say it to yourself. There is no such thing as subtraction. Okay, so now let's change to add the opposite. So here I have a +7 and a +3. But instead of subtracting a +3, I'm going to add the opposite. So I'm going to add a -3. So here's how I'm going to rewrite it. 7 plus a -3. And when we put that -3 together, we're going to use those parentheses to show that it's -3. Let's do the same thing with the second problem. This time, instead of a +7, I have a -7 minus a +3. So that becomes -7 plus a -3, and that -3 goes in parentheses. You don't need the negative or the parentheses around the -7 because it's out front, and we understand that then the negative sign goes in front of numbers. So when it's out front, I don't need those parentheses. The next one is 7 minus a negative 3. Now, whenever you see negative, negative, it becomes a positive. So this becomes 7 plus, and since it's negative, when I'm subtracting, it becomes a positive. So it's 7 plus 3. Isn't that cool? Negative, negative becomes a positive. Very cool. Negative 7 minus a negative 3 becomes negative 7 plus a positive 3. So that's what we mean by adding the opposite. And the more we do this in class, the more it will make sense. So here we go. Let's do some more practice. In number 1, I have negative 7, but then I'm adding. So do I have to change anything? Nope, it's already adding. I just rewrite it. Negative 7 plus 7. Number 2, however, I am subtracting. So I need to totally change it. So I will keep negative 10 the same. I will change from subtraction to addition. And then since that's a negative 7, it becomes a positive 7. So I end up with negative 10 plus 7. For number 3, I have a positive 13 subtraction, so that becomes addition. And since I have a positive 18, it becomes a negative 18. So 13 plus a negative 18. For number 4, I have 16 minus a negative 5. So it becomes 16 plus, instead of negative, it becomes positive. So now I have 16 plus 5. For number 5, it's negative 6 minus a negative 1. Negative 6 stays the same, change from subtraction to addition, and that negative 1 becomes a positive 1. So I get negative 6 plus 1. For number 6, it's already addition, so I don't change anything, just rewrite it as the same. And you could put a little star next to number 1 and number 6 because they are still addition. So you don't have to change anything, you're not adding the opposite. So again, put a star next to number 1 and number 6 and just put don't change because you're not changing those. You try number 7 and number 8 on your own. Just pause the video and try them on your own and then come back and see if you did it right. Hopefully you're not cheating. All right, we're back. 17 minus a positive 8 becomes 17 plus a negative 8. And then number 8, negative 43 minus a negative 12 becomes negative 43 plus a positive 12. Okay, hopefully you're understanding that we're adding the opposite, and we will do more practice of this in class, and we're going to do some practice with counters in just a second so you'll understand where this is coming from. All right, flip over your paper. We're on to the back. Now we're going to show you how you can model adding integers using counters, and we'll use these in class on day 2, but this is just a pre-teaching kind of thing. So your first step is to eliminate subtraction. It's dead. Dun, 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 dun. And then you're going to add the opposite, meaning positive or negative. Number 2, circle each of the numbers, including its positive or negative sign. So then you know what kind of number it is. Number 3, step 3, is to draw the counters for the first number circled, and then draw the counters for the second number circled. They're two separate things. And then number 4, step 4, is to circle the 0 pairs. And remember, a 0 pair is one positive and one negative because those equal 0. So then you cross out those 0 pairs because they equal 0. And then what's left after you cross out all those 0 pairs is your final answer. And I know that's kind of like, what, huh? It'll make sense. Just wait. So let's do our first example. Step 1. Add the opposite. So instead of 3 minus 5, I'm going to take 3 plus a negative 5. Step 2 says circle each number including its sign. So the 3 is positive and the 5 is negative. Then I draw the counters for each number. Since 3 is positive, I'm going to draw 3 positive counters. Since 5 is negative, I'm going to draw 5 negative counters, and you can pause the video if you need more time. Then we eliminate the zero pairs. So a positive and a negative is a zero pair. So here's a zero pair, and here's a zero pair, and here's a zero pair. Since those all equal 0, I can cross them out. And I'm left with, ding, 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 -2, because that's what's left after all my zero pairs are gone. And that's your answer. Let's move on to problem number 2. This one I don't have to rewrite because it's already addition. So it's just keep the same numbers. I'm going to rewrite it though so I can circle it a little easier. Step 2, circle the numbers including its sign. The first number is -2. The second number is a +7. Oops, I meant to circle the positive. That plus sign in the middle goes with that +7. Then I draw the counters for each number. I need 2 negatives, and then I need 7 positives. Then I eliminate zero pairs. Here's one zero pair. Here's another zero pair. That's a positive and a negative, because a positive plus a negative equals a 0. Then I can cross those out because they all equal 0. And what's left is my answer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. +5. For question number 3, this is subtraction, so I have to rewrite it. It'll be -6 plus a +1. Negative becomes a positive. And then I need to circle each number including its sign. It's a -6 and a +1. Draw the counters. I have 6 negatives and 1 positive. Eliminate the zero pairs. That one's gone. And what's left is my answer. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 negatives. For number 4, I do have to rewrite it because it's subtraction. So I rewrite it as -6 plus a -8. Then circle each number including its sign, a -6, and then a -8. Draw the counters, 6 negatives, and then 8 negatives. Whoa, I have a problem. There's no zero pairs. What do I do? Nothing. If there's no zero pairs, that is your answer. They're all negative, so your answer is a -14. And you will get problems like that where they're all positive or they're all negative and you don't cross out any zero pairs on those. So number 5, before we get going, stop and draw a star in the top left corner of your paper. Draw a star in the top left corner of your paper. Ding, ding, ding. Okay, moving on. 1 minus 5 needs to be written as 1 plus a -5. Circle each number, including its sign. Draw 1 positive and 5 negatives. Eliminate your zero pairs. I only have 1. Cross that puppy out. It's gone. And I'm left with 4 negatives. That's my answer. All right, one more example. We have 6 plus a -11. I don't have to do any adding the opposite because it's already addition. All I have to do is circle my numbers. 6 and -11. Draw the counters. +6 and a -11. Eliminate my zero pairs. Those are all gone. And what I'm left with is -5, and that's my answer. And now it's time for you to show what you know. Log in and take that homework quiz. Remember, you don't get credit if you don't take that homework quiz.